Hey there, welcome to the channel. Today we will be talking about K-pop Demon Hunters and this short one-shot that I've written to hopefully improve the movie by just a small margin if taken into consideration. And that is because while I love this movie because of its amazing soundtrack, the stunning visuals, and well-written character arcs, there were still a few plot lines that fell flat, and one of those was when the group decided to sing Golden at the Idol Awards. It's a very important moment for the movie as it shows the girls coming together and is sort of the high before the downfall, right? Because it makes it seem like everything is going to be alright. But this moment doesn't hit as hard as it could because it feels like it was rushed. There was no prior build up to this because what happens is the girls aren't as close as they should be, with Rumi constantly trying to push for Takedown not to be sung or to be changed. Both Mira and Zoe feel as though their efforts aren't being appreciated, and that paired with Rumi lashing out at Mira during the train fight leaves this sort of divide between the girls. But there's no actual resolution to this. Rumi then just goes to meet with Jinu and they sing free. And when she comes back, Zoe and Mira have changed their tune. They're no longer angry at Rumi. They've come to understand her position. And it feels as though there's been a scene that's been removed from the movie. And the movie does kind of hint towards this with how both Zoe and Mira have eye bags, which hint towards something happening probably late at night between the two that help them understand Rumi and her position. And I internalized this and I really wanted to see this scene because I feel like it would have given both Mira and Zoe much deserved spotlight as very important deuterogonists in this film. So I wrote it. And I hope that you guys enjoy my explanation and deep dive into this scene that I've written and give me some feedback on it as well. Okay, so getting into this is the first thing is obviously my introduction or preposition towards the scene. And since this one shot isn't actually part of the film, I have to re-establish some of the stakes using the first two paragraphs explaining how Huntrix and the hunters for generations have been protecting the world with the Han Moon and sealing away demons. But since isn't the actual focus of this one shot, I contrast it and make it feel as though there were much bigger stakes with how Rumi is actually the problem in this situation because she has been slowly drifting away from the rest of the group. I do the classic show not tell with how Mira is demonstrated restless, walking around, pacing, and I set what are the current stakes of what the pressures the characters are currently facing with how the Idol Awards were coming and how it was the culmination of the efforts of hunters throughout the generations. But currently it just doesn't feel right for Mira because Rumi, their leader, the person that has understood them and brought them together, is slowly drifting away. And I wanted to show how this slow drifting away was affecting Mira's mental state partially. So I wrote some internal doubts for Mira in order to show that she isn't internalizing this drifting away really well. Oh, and she tries to come to understand what the situation is. So she begins to have the gears in her head turning and she starts to go, "Oh, maybe it's just because of the stress for the last couple of weeks because on top of it being the Idol Wars and their chance to seal the Han Moon for good, turning it golden, the Saja boys have begun to interfere as well as demons and agents of Guima. And with this gradual understanding of, oh, maybe Rumi's just under a lot of pressure, Mira decides to comfort Rumi because that's what friends are for. So, stealing herself, she decides to go towards Rumi's room. But the issue is currently that Rumi isn't actually in her room. She's off with Jinu singing free. And Mira doesn't actually know this, so this is one of those classic cliches. There's one person on the other side of the door scenes, but there's no one on the other side of the door this time, and it's sort of just meant to show the viewer or the reader the emotional impact and the emotional struggles that both Mira and Zoe are struggling with, and Zoe will appear eventually. But what happens is I have Mira give this short but very important line where it demonstrates that Mira is actually trying to understand Rumi's position, which is demonstrated later in when they decide to sing Golden. But it's this short line where Mira removes some of her hardened shell of being kind of prickly towards others, where she opens up and apologizes for whatever she's done, maybe during the train fight as well, and she tries to explain to Rumi that she understands that she might not have been the best friend recently, but she wants Rumi to know that they're all in this together and that despite all the pressure of everything that's going on around them, they still have each other as a group. But since Rumi isn't there, the silence is what she gets as a response. This sort of brings doubts into Mira's mind, but she decides not to deal with it, thinking that maybe Rumi just wants space. And then here's the part where I bring Zoe into this situation as well in order to have her develop as an individual as well. So I wanted to play a little bit on suspense, so I have this sort of gradual intensity where there's this dark figure looming around, maybe potentially a demon or something, but it's just Zoe, and it's sort of this build suspense sort of situation, but it pays off into this sort of comedic moment. So with this comedic moment, I sort of lessen the tension a bit, making this feel a bit more lighthearted in order to follow the style of the film just a bit more because while despite the emotional moments, there were still plenty of comedies as well, especially with, for example, the conclusion where they express how much they mean to each other while crying in the bathhouse. So what happens with this conversation is that Zoe asks Mira what she's doing because Mira is obviously not in her room. She's at Rumi's door, and Mira just responds with trying to apologize for everything that she's doing, and she tells Zoe that, oh, Rumi isn't responding, and expresses that maybe Rumi's mad at her. Maybe that's why she's not responding. And again, Rumi's just not inside the room. She's off with Jinu singing free. So Zoe comes to comfort Mira, and she explains that, oh, maybe Rumi's just asleep or something, and that they've all been struggling, right? So they all probably want to have their rest, and Mira responds to this by saying that she hopes so too, and that she's been wondering whether or not Rumi is right in saying that Takedown isn't the right song to sing at the Idol Awards, and despite all the effort that they put in, they might just need to pivot. And Zoe says that she does kind of agree with how, despite all this work and effort, it doesn't really define Huntrix as who they are as a group and as individuals. And this sort of takes from the actual scene that appears in the movie that will happen later on. And Mira has this sort of understanding, and she gets this sort of epiphany that they've been focused too much on the demon hunting part of Huntrix instead of the K-pop and the fans part of it, which is a realization that they will have later on in the movie as well. And I really wanted to tie that in to this one shot. Now, I concluded with a rather simple thing by just having them say their goodbyes, say their goodnights, and there's this one sort of scene, there's this one sort of short part that I added in, which is just Mira lingering at Rumi's door. What remains in her mind remains a mystery, but she says this quick, simple line, please, Rumi, don't shut us out now. And I think that's a very good place to end that scene there. So I have it finished. It remains silent because Rumi is not in the room. Once again, she is out singing free with Jinu, and I have this sort of built suspense of a shadow of doubt curling tight in Mira's chest because it's sort of a foreshadowing that there's still a secret that Rumi has kept from them, that being that she is part demon. But that's kind of where I ended there, and I hope you guys enjoyed this one shot. I mean, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If there is any way I could improve this video formatting or how I write, I would greatly appreciate feedback in the comments. You guys can also suggest future video ideas or one shots for me to write. I have 2 or 3 currently in the works. I'm not sure how I will be posting what my schedule will be in the future, but I hope you guys come to enjoy this sort of YouTube style of having a bit of feedback on movies while also saying and actually doing my improvements in a sort of writing style format. And I hope you guys all enjoy. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content, or dislike if you really don't like it. I hope we can all have a great time together in the future.